So with March underway, it's time for me to release my March TBR. The theme for this month is books recommended to me by others that I already own. Or should I say that books I own that have been recommended to me by others. I don't know. And I picked this theme so that I wouldn't go out and buy more books, so naturally I will be having a book haul for you in the next couple of days. And unlike last month, I actually put in a requirement that each book had to meet so that I didn't end up with like the same type of books being read. Last month I had a children's book, a children's/YA book, and a YA book. So in order to make that just a bit different, I added requirements. And so for the first book, the only other requirement was that it had to be a physical book. And for that, I picked 13 Reasons Why by J. Asher. This book was recommended to me. This book was actually a required reading when I signed up for my children's literature course, along with Will Grayson. But on the first day of class, when we got our syllabus, this book and Will Grayson had been moved to recommended reading, and our required reading then became The Fault in Our Stars by John Green and The Book Thief by Marcus Zusak. I've since read Will Grayson, so this is the only other book I have left to read. From what I know about this book follows a guy named Clay Jensen as he listens to tapes made by a girl named Hannah, who I believe killed herself, and the tapes tell the reasons why she did it, and I believe the book is his journey listening to those tapes. And the professor of my children's literature course has recommended quite a few good books that I actually enjoyed, such as the Hunger Games trilogy, almost everything on the syllabus for the course, and Wonder by R.J. Palacio. This is the first book for my March TBR. The second book on my March TBR, the requirement for the book was that it had to be a book on my Nook. And I knew that was gonna rhyme, and I wanted to say it differently, but I said it that way anyway. So originally this book was supposed to be Divergent by Veronica Roth. But when March 1st came around, I'm like, oh, I'll just start that book, and I'll just like hold out until I film the video, and then I'll be like, yeah! But I read it in one day, so I would feel like I'm cheating if I'm like, by the way guys, in March, I'm gonna read Divergent. Oh yeah, by the way, I already read it. So I wanted to pick another book. So I ended up picking Matched by Ali Condi, which if you saw my book name tag, was the first book that I said I wanted to read in 2013. From that tag, not the first book I wanted to read in 2013. I've already started reading Matched, but there's no way I'm going to finish that book before this video goes up, so I feel comfortable saying that it is my Nook pick for my March TBR. Yay! I didn't want to have to like pick a third book. I'm only about 50 pages in. Matched is the story of a girl named Cassia Maria Reyes, who on her 17th birthday goes to her matching ceremony and to get paired up with her partner, and they give her an information card all about the guy she's supposed to be with, and when she gets home to view that card, there are actually two different guys on that card. There's the socially acceptable guy and the not socially acceptable guy. I would imagine the logical course for the story to take is her falling in love with the not socially acceptable guy. And this book already feels like it's a cross between The Giver and 1984, so except written for girls. There's definitely a female-oriented theme in this book. Matched was actually recommended to me by various booktubers that I have watched. Not very many actually, but the few that I have watched who reviewed this book said they actually liked it. For the third book, the requirement was classic/adult. This is to make sure I pick at least one book that isn't contemporary YA and avoids the genre of YA entirely, because I do know some months I will probably end up with a theme that doesn't have a classic for it, say if I decide to do zombies or something. Not really very many classics written with zombies, so, you know, I have to make sure I keep the options open for my themes. So for the classic / adult book, I picked The Stranger, and I want to say it's by Albert Camus, but I'm pretty sure he's French. In fact, I know he's French, so I believe it's pronounced Albert Camus, but that's just a girl who took Spanish's attempt at speaking French. And this is translated, this is translated from French by Matthew Ward, so it's a translation. This was recommended to me by a friend who was in both my Shakespeare course and my second half of World Literature course. Actually, I think he was also in the first half of World Literature course, but we didn't speak to each other then. Other than the fact that when he recommended it to me, he said that it was a great piece on existentialism, and while I enjoy like the concept of existentialism, I have to admit, don't like reading about existentialism, so my hopes aren't actually very high for this book, but it's a short book and I already own it, so I should read it, and then if I don't like it I can get rid of the book or keep it and be like, I'm never reading this book again, but at least I have the book. Who knows. And the final book that I picked fell into the category of book guilt, which can be defined in one of two ways. The first way, like Shiva's Fire was last month, was a book that I bought a really long time ago and haven't read. And the second way, which also was like Shiva's Fire, but also every other book last month, was that it was a book I started but never actually finished. And the second case is this book, which is The Legend of Nightfall by Mickey Zucker Reichart. This was recommended to me by my uncle, the same uncle that recommended I read The Grimm Sisters, and I got probably about halfway into this book, and then I had to go to school, and so I left this sitting on the table, and it was one of my really long, like 12-hour days at college, so when I came back, I found out my mom was expecting company that day, so she cleared off the table and then the book disappeared. That is going to be my book guilt book. And The Legend of Nightfall, from what I remember about it, is there are people in this world who have magical powers. Nightfall, as he is known in this book, has the power to change his mass, which is a power that a lot of people try to kill him for, because there are people who kill people with magical powers and then take their magical powers for their own. There's like fuzz in front of my face. And Nightfall ends up getting caught, and he's forced to escort an idealistic young prince across the country and set him up on a particular piece of land. And while he's trying to do this, he's also under like a curse or a spell similar to the Unbreakable Vow in Harry Potter, where if he breaks it, he dies. And there are people trying to kill him and the prince, and I believe if the prince dies, he dies, and so he has to protect the prince. It was actually a very interesting book. I remember, I actually remember quite a bit from it, but I don't want to get to too many spoilers. But those are the 4 books on my March TBR. And for the March carryovers are books that I started the previous month, or in the previous months, and then didn't actually finish. And for March, I only have one carryover book, and that is 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea by Jules Verne. And 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea is about a guy named M. Arnox who gets knocked off a boat, ends up on a submarine run by Captain Nemo, and it's basically their adventures in the water. But right now I'm on chapter 12 and he's only just gotten onto the Nautilus, so moves kind of slow. Yay for classics. If you've read any of the books that I have on this month's TBR, feel free to leave your thoughts on them in the comments. I was about to say comics below. And until next time, TTYL.